Hello and welcome back to The Artful Chef. Miss M here, and I have a special guest with me today. I have
Layla.
Layla is one of my students, and she is also in art club, and she is going to be helping demonstrate this week's assignment. So if you read your PowerPoint, you will see that we are working with oil pastels. If you are at home and you cannot get your hands on pastels to work with, you need to do this with colored pencil. And this is just going to be review for you with colored pencil work because it kind of works the same way with oil pastels. If you are lucky enough to have oil pastels at home, I do want you to use them. You can get your hands on them at Walmart pretty inexpensively, or you can order them through Amazon. So let's get started talking about our pastels. So Layla, you said that you have used pastels just a little bit, right?
Yes.
Okay. So pastels are actually oil, wax binder, and pigment. Pigment is color. So they blend it together and it makes like this little stick, like almost like a crayon. So lots of famous artists actually used oil pastels. Even Picasso, you heard of Picasso? Picasso used oil pastels a lot in his artwork. So you get very bright, bold, beautiful colors with pastels. I will warn you that they are messy and they will get on your hands. So you have a towel there to use. You also want to keep in mind when you are using pastels that color transfers from one pastel to another, like when you're working on the paper. So anytime you're going to change a color, wipe off your pastel if you've gotten it on another color on your towel. And it's okay if the towels get dirty. That'll keep your colors clean and your lines better looking. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn some different techniques. So the things that we learned last week for using colored pencils, stippling and tints and shades and scumbling, all those things we're going to do again, but we're going to use oil pastels to do them. So let's get our camera down on our paper and we'll get started. So on this reference page right here, you will have this available in your PowerPoint. These are different things that you can use with oil pastels to make your pictures look the way you want them to look. So just regular pink erasers, color shapers, which are these, they look like a paintbrush, but they have a rubber tip on the end of them that's flexible. These are those little paper sticks like you use to blend, like when you're using pencils. Have you ever seen those? Mm-hmm. Okay. Paint brushes, palette knives. Baby oil is awesome for using on oil pastels because you can take your pastels and you can blend them together very nicely using a Q-tip and your baby oil. We're not going to use any pastel holders today because, one, I don't have any, but if you've got paper still on the outside of your oil pastel, it's not really necessary. You can use toothpicks if you want to create that Scruffito, which is kind of scribbling in your oil pastel, and it kind of takes away color and leaves color behind, different colors behind. Fixative is what you use to spray on at the end. It's almost like like shellacking your surface, because oil pastels, when you work with them, they transfer. So you always want to either keep it covered or keep it in a place where it's not going to rub on something else when it's finished, unless it has fixative on it, because you'll transfer your pastel on something else. So if you're doing this in a sketchbook, you definitely want to put a piece of copy paper over the top of it when you are done. So the first thing that we're going to talk about on our techniques is light pressure blending. And light pressure blending is what it sounds like. So when you're using colored pencils and you do that very light layer so that you can layer multiple times on top of it to get to that heavy waxy look of a wax or a colored pencil, it's the same concept with oil pastels. So I want you to choose two pastels. Doesn't matter which colors you choose. I'm going to do pink and purple. So you want to do a light layer of one color. Then you're going to go on top of it and overlap your other color. And then you're going to take a Q-tip and you are going to blend your colors. So in light pressure blending, you will still see part of your paper in the background. So if you are using colored paper like black paper or gray paper, light pressure blending is nice because you can still get the color coming through of the colored paper that you're using. It just really depends on what style of art you're going for, on whether you want to use light pressure or this next one, which is heavy pressure blending. And unlike colored pencils, where if you color colored pencils as heavy as you can color them right off the bat, you know that you can't blend those colors together, right? Okay, so in oil pastels, they work a little bit differently. So I'm gonna get, you can choose two colors, doesn't matter, you can do the same ones or different ones, but I want you to color heavy with your oil pastels this time. And so put a pretty good thick layer on there. And then overlap it with your second color. Then you're going to take that Q-tip and you're going to blend. Now, because you put it on heavy, it will take some of the pastel off of the surface as it blends it, and that's okay. If you want to even it out to the other side, you can. It really is up to you on how you like it. So the next technique is scumbling. So we've talked about scumbling a couple of times. We talked about it when we were doing mark making, and we talked about it using colored pencils. So same concept, scumbling is basically scribbling. So if you want to just scribble around like this, this is just one way that you can fill in your space with your oil pastels. So I did light pressure on that scumbling right there, but if I wanted a more concentrated color, I would press a little heavier when I'm using it, and I would get a different value there. The next thing we're going to do is practice making a tint, and we're going to also make a shade. So Layla, tell me, what color do we use to make a tint?
A dark, or
if you're going to make a lighter color of a color that you're using, would you use white or black?
white.
White, very good. So you want a white, and you want any one of your other colors. So I'm going to go with blue. So to make a tint, anytime you want to make a tint, you have to use a white with your color to make it lighter. So I'm going to lightly press with my blue. Then I'm going to go over it with my white, a little bit heavier. And I'm going to blend those together with my Q-tip. And you have just created a tint. So there's a lighter blue. Now, what color do you mix to get a shade?
Black.
Black, very good. So I'm going to make, I'm going to try and make like a maroon color. So I'm going to do my red lightly. And remember, with black, you always want to go sparing on those dark colors like that, because if you get it too dark, then you're not really going to have that difference in color. It's going to be all black. So go lightly with the black over your color, and then blend with your Q-tip. So you have just made a shade. Oh, you did fine. So one thing to think about to prevent having lines visible in there is if you make it closer together when you're shading it, it'll prevent those visible lines. All right, the next one is a Scruffito. So Scruffito, that's a hard word to say. Scruffito is where you're going to have one color or multiple colors. You could even do a rainbow of colors underneath, and then you go over it heavy with a dark color like a black or a purple or blue, something that's going to be darker than the colors that you used underneath. And then you use a toothpick to remove things from the surface. So choose a couple of colors to go as your base colors. I'm going to go with, I think this pink, purple, and lime green. And so you want to make this coat fairly heavy, not as heavy as you can get it, but it needs to be heavier than that light color. Now you can also, with black paint, you could cover a whole entire page with oil pastels like this, paint a layer of black acrylic paint on top of it, and then you've created your own little scratch board that you can draw on. So, yeah. So see, all these new skills. Okay, so you're gonna take your black and you're gonna go right over the top of that, and you're gonna make a pretty heavy layer on top of it, because you want to be able, you want that top layer to look solid so that when you scrape away, you get those colors that are left underneath. And then you're going to take your toothpick and you're going to just draw your pictures in here. Isn't that cool? All right, so the next one is stippling. Stippling again is those tiny little dots, and there are lots of artists out there who have patience to do entire pictures with stippling, but as I said before, it's not my forte. But stippling, you want to be careful when you're using oil pastels not to get your hands in it wherever you're stippling, because it will smear what you're working on. So stippling is just the tiny little dots. If you want your value to be darker, you can press harder, and you can also put your little dots closer together, and it'll give you that appearance that it is darker in that area. Next, we are going to try some oil blending. Baby oil is the best for this, baby oil or an olive oil. I do not have any of that in my room. I have aftershave, and we're going to do that because that works just as well. So if you will take that. Okay, so I want you to choose two colors to blend. I'm going to blend red and yellow. So when you are using oil to blend, you want a fairly heavy layer of your oil pastel on your paper, because it's going to work a lot better when you are using it over a heavy surface rather than when you're using it on a very lightly colored surface. So if you will dip your Q-tip in there when you get done and get a little bit of that liquid and just blend those two together. And like I said, baby oil works better for this, but we're using what we have. It smells lovely, doesn't it? All right. What are some complementary colors on our color wheel?
Red and green, orange and blue, and purple and yellow.
Very good. Now, you could also use these secondary colors or these tertiary colors, but y'all haven't learned tertiary colors yet. But those are those colors that come in between. After you have your secondary colors and you mix your secondary color with the primary color, you get this in between color. So those are also complementary, but we haven't gotten into that yet. So knowing what you know about complementary colors, I want you to choose two complementary colors. We're going to blend two complementary colors together. So let's see, I think I'm gonna go with purple and yellow for my two complementary colors. And again, with the blending, I'm gonna go a little bit heavy, like I did on this heavy pressure blending up here. That's what I'm gonna use on this to blend these complementary colors. And we're just going to use a dry Q-tip to smooth that out and blend. No oil on this one. Just going to smooth them out together here. And you don't always have to use a Q-tip to blend. Sometimes they just kind of naturally blend on their own. And sometimes you don't want to remove any. So it just depends on how you want to look at your art. So on the next one, we're going to blend two cool colors. And on the last one, we're going to blend two warm colors. On these last two boxes, we're going to blend two cool colors and two warm colors. So Layla, tell us what are our cool colors?
Blue, green, and purple.
Very good. And what are our warm colors?
Red, orange, and yellow.
Very good. So I want you to choose any two of the cool colors. So I think I'm going to go with blue and purple on mine. So we're going to blend those colors together. And then on that last one, I want you to choose any two of the warm colors, and I want you to blend those together. Let's see, I'm going to go with these, orange and red. All right, so we are done with the lesson portion of this. So this will be in Canvas as an assignment. So you will need to take a picture of your page after you've completed it. If you are working at home and you only have colored pencils and you don't have oil pastels, you can skip the Scruffito part because it will not work with colored pencils. Unless you want to give it a try and see if you can, but I haven't been able to make it work with colored pencils. So that one, if you're using colored pencils, you can skip. The other ones is going to be like review for you of your colored pencil work in exchange for not having the oil pastels at your house. And we will link the next video for the lesson at the end of this.